we understand that biological sciences means all the life sciences, plant science, animal science, veterinary science, and whatever it is. So we have to come up with a routine shell of life sciences. And the entire society has to think that in what way the life sciences can be beneficial and they can enter into the private equity and the public equity, because unless and until the biological sciences are making something useful for the mankind, the potential of biological sciences will not be realized. So today's webinar is an attempt to clarify, to have few lectures of renowned faculties from different parts who shall be discussing about that how the biological sciences can enter into the private equity, in what way the biological sciences can be useful for the mankind in various spheres of life, and for that how the startup can be implemented and who can fund the startup if a young fellow is going to take up this opportunity. So we shall be having, we are having our founder patron, Professor M.P. Yadav, sir. Good evening, sir. And we are just waiting for Professor R.R. Hanchinal. He might be joining us very soon, the President of Society for Plant Research. And then the moderator, Professor Pradeep Kumar Singhal from RD University, Jabalpur. I understand that Professor Pradeep has already joined. Yes, welcome, Professor Pradeep Singhal. Then I can see Professor M.N.V. Prasad, our very old student, Dr. Suniti Kudyal, our associate editor, Professor Kartikeya Srivastav, beside many others who have already joined. I can see, and Joanna, welcome Joanna. Our keynote speaker, Professor Joanna is here. Hello. Welcome on board.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to this.
Yeah. So, in the meantime, I request our founder patron, Professor M.P. Yadav, sir, to speak few words of blessings so that we can switch over to today's webinar. Professor M.P. Yadav, sir. Sir, please unmute your mic, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Dr. S.K. Bhatnagar and all the eminent participants in this very important discussion on the private equity, or rather its role in improving our publications or journals so that we reach or attain international requirements, standards, and whatever we publish from this country in any science, that is equated, including the developed countries. So because there are problems and we know that the international factor of our journals in India by and large,
Good evening, sir.
including
Have you joined, sir?
Including the agricultural sciences, audible?
Should I send it through via what?
Yeah, you are audible. Go ahead.
So this is an effort, and because the finance is one of the most important factor everywhere in our life. Even when we talk of Saraswati and Mahalakshmi, two different deities, supreme deities, responsible for say knowledge. Saraswati responsible for knowledge, but there also you need finances, you need infrastructure, you need books, you need scholarships, fellowships for the students. So education, it is not those old Gurukul type of that education where you student stay at one place under the guidance of holy gurus or teachers. But now you need a number of teachers in the university, in the colleges. For example, in veterinary colleges, you require about 125 faculty plus other people. And Dr. Bhatnagar might be remembering when I was at Meerut, and we were opening a new veterinary college there. And for that, we gave this requirement of the faculty and other staff. Then this about 125 requirement, nobody in the secretariat in the capital, they were not able to appreciate. And because they said that we expect that one teacher should take a class of 500 students. What is the problem? And they asked, what will be your intake? So we told that our intake is, standard intake is 60. So they said it is not acceptable, it is not possible. How for 60 students, and then 60 students, they will, the first batch will pass after 4 or 5 years. So either you finance yourself. And then when we talk of education and the standards in education, we want autonomy, because some problems are because there is no autonomy. And government will immediately say, yes, we can give you autonomy, but you become self-financed. If you are dependent on the government, how you can expect to be autonomous in all your affairs? So I think under this context, this is very important, that can we have some help from the private equity as a equal partner, equal footing, and this is win-win situation for the private sector and for the academic faculty, students, and our system of education. So I think with this, we will hear the experts. I am here to hear, to learn something from these discussions. So maybe that in times to come, we are benefited for a good cause. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best in your discussions. Over to Dr. Bhatnagar.
Thank you, sir, for your blessings. Now I can see that Professor R.R. Hanchinal has already joined. Professor Hanchinal, please. Anyway, as soon as our president will join, he will give the presidential speech for 4 or 5 minutes. In the meantime, let me talk a little about the organizers. We are a 34-year-old Society for Plant Research. It was established in 1988. And ever since it was started, it initiated publication of an international research journal, Vegetos, which is now a symbol of good reputation among the journals of biological sciences. And from 2019 onward, it is being published by the international publisher Springer Nature. And almost every month, the number of articles which are being contributed to the journal are increasing, and the quality of papers which are contributed to the journals are of very high profile. Now, the mandate of Society for Plant Research is not only to publish the journal, but to disseminate knowledge on different fields. Today's topic will be briefed by the moderator, Professor Pradeep Singhal, in a few minutes from now. Now, why the society took over this webinar? It was an idea of few of our colleagues and executive members that what is the potential of biological sciences? Should it be restricted to the blackboard teaching, or should it move forward and we should enter into the private equity? Now, the point is that as on today, there are so many fields of biological sciences which are of great potential for the welfare of mankind, not only to mankind, but to the environment, to the poultry, to animal science, and to different other sectors of the society. I can quote one example that once upon a time, algae was a discarded discipline, and nobody wanted to learn much about this field because everybody was aware that it is simply a taxonomic survey of the photosynthetic microorganisms. But as on today, we can see that almost in every walk of life, including food, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, and in different fields, algae has entered and has shown its potential. And we are going for different types of pigments and different types of bioactive compounds which are extracted from algae, and they are being utilized for various purposes. And it is a big industry in many of the European countries and American continent, that algae is being taken up as a feedstock for the formation of biodiesel. It is being used as a feedstock for many nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, cosmetic products, and the food products. So today we are having three important topics which will be discussed by the subject experts. And in the meantime, we are waiting for our president, Professor R.R. Hanchinal, to join. And I hand over for rest of the proceedings to Professor Pradeep Kumar Singhal. He is the Professor of Biological Sciences at Rani Durgavati University at Jabalpur. Professor Pradeep Singhal, please.
Thank you, Professor Bhatnagar. It was an idea, you see. I first extend my hearty welcome to all the esteemed members of Society for Plant Research, all the invited speakers, including Dr. Joanna, I'm able to see. Dr. Shirshendu from DBT will be joining a little bit later. And Dr. Sanjay Satsanga, I think he must have already joined. So the president of SPR, that is Dr. Professor Hanchinal, founder and secretary SPR, Professor Bhatnagar, Professor Srivastav, and my fellow colleague, you see, Dr. Tabassum, who will be acting as a rapporteur. Let me give a brief outlay of why did we choose this particular topic for today's webinar. You will agree with me that for time immemorial, you see, we were doing researches in biological sciences, different facets of biological sciences, mainly funded by the government of India or by a particular state government. And very rarely we got the funding from private concern, including the industry. But you see, over a period of time, many graduates, particularly from IITs, IIMs, or Institute of Chemical Technology or CSR institutes, you see, predominantly the technical graduates, you see. After taking the training, you see, or after graduating from their respective institute, you see, they started establishing startups. Startups, we say that it is a new privately held company based mainly on the innovative technology or emerging technology. And today, you see, the word which we are using is blended technology. That is, I think, STEM you must be acquainted with. That is the science, technology, engineering, maths. And that is what they are taking help of that. And today, you see, a brief survey will show you that we have more than 3,000 startups in India. Basically based on biological processes or biological products, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, instrumentation, etc. over there. And the major sectors which you are having over there, where the startups are existing and operating successfully, I would say, they are healthcare, health tech, diagnostics, instrumentation. As you know, in Gurgaon recently, you see, I think a day before, a startup company has established RT-PCR for COVID-19 analysis. I think they can process about 5,000 test samples on a single day. That has already been approved by ICMR, etc. over there. And now you see, we see that in recent past, you see, there are many biological startups which have started gaining that status of unicorns.
Problem.
I think, sorry?
Thank you, sir. Thank
Most
you.
of you must be acquainted with the term unicorn, you see. Are you listening me, please? Okay. So unicorns in industrial parlance, we define as any privately held company, you see, which has a valuation of over $1 billion US dollar. So I will mention only two industries which have gained the status of unicorn in 2021. The Pharmacy, I think most of you must be acquainted with. Some of you might be procuring or outsourcing your medicines from Pharmacy. Then you have Innovator. This is a very shining example of technology which is providing healthcare inputs, you see, to hospitals and a network of doctors, including US. And this is a company which is based at Noida and San Francisco, which has been founded by two graduates of IIT Kharagpur and one graduate of IIM, that is Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, in 2014, and recently in 2021, they attained the status of unicorn. Similarly, Pharmacy has been established in 2015, again by a Dr. Dhaval Shah, who returned from US. And it started as a diagnostic company, basically. Today also it is offering those services. And in addition to that, they have started supplying medicines online. And they have also merged with MedLife. MedLife also you must have heard. That is the Pharmacy. Another interesting example which we can see around us is, very interesting example, is of Ossus Biorenewables. Ossus Biorenewables. It has been established by Lady Dr. Suruchi Rao, who graduated from Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai in 2017 in bioprocess technology. And after graduating in bioprocess technology, she established this particular company where she is converting the wastewater carbon, which is generated from process industries, into hydrogen. And that hydrogen is being used as a green fuel or alternative fuel by the industry itself. And why do I say it is interesting, you see? Basically because when they optimize the microbial catalyst for converting wastewater carbon into hydrogen, they face this problem that most of the industry which they were targeting for, they don't have space for large bioreactors. So what did they do? They designed modular bioreactors, very small bioreactors, for which they operated the platforms like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, machine learning, etc. over there, so that they can remotely monitor them, remotely operate them. And as a result, you see the organizations like Steel Authority of India, to name a big organization, they're already employing their technology over there. So there are many industries, like Serum Institute of India, Bharat Biotech, which are recently in talks, you see in news, for their COVID-19 vaccine over there. So with this idea, we were in discussion with the SPR, particularly Dr. Bhatnagar, and we thought about that, why don't we deliberate a dedicated session on how to attract private equity into biological researches, particularly the researches which is being done by non-technical people like us, who are getting non-technical education like MSc, PhD over there in the university system. So with that particular background, I think should we start, Dr. Bhatnagar? What do you say?
Yes, Professor Singhal, I think you can invite Professor Joanna because she will be having another meeting at 15 or so.
I understand.
Thank you.
So our first speaker for today is Dr. Joanna Kane-Potaka.
Professor Singhal?
Yeah.
Before we proceed to Professor Joanna, let us listen just for 1 or 2 minutes to our president. He has joined already.
Sure.
Professor Yara, please.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'm sorry there was some connectivity problem, so I could not join exactly at 3 o'clock, and welcome to all of you. In fact, I must congratulate the patron of this society, Dr. Yadav Sahab, MP Yadav Sahab, and also Dr. Bhatnagar Sahab, the founder Secretary General, for organizing such very innovative webinars. And as you know, this private equity for biological sciences, I feel, is very important. Being a man from the plant breeding background, we are struggling very hard to see that whatever the technology that has been developed both by public as well as private entrepreneurs should reach to the farming community. So in this regard, I say because of the private equity, we have achieved a lot. Now, if you take 1947 as the base year, there was no private equity in the seed research. But today, there are more than 600 seed companies with worth $3.6 billion of transaction, and now we are almost fourth at international level. This we could achieve only because of the private partners, equity or investment in this research. Like this, even in biotechnological biotechnological aspect, there are a lot of things have happened, and certainly this will prosper the country. And at international level also, I tell, when I was working with ICRISAT and USAID in Africa, we in 5 West African countries, we try to establish the private equity system. That's what we facilitate there to have the commercial seed companies. So like this, in each and every biological sciences discipline, I think we can think of it. And I once again congratulate Dr. Bhatnagar Sahab and also Dr. Yadav Sahab for identifying this topic for the today's webinar, and eminent speakers are there, and think that certainly the will come out with some good recommendations. With few words, I wish all the best for this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Anshina sir. And now I hand over to Professor Pradeep Singhal to kindly moderate the proceedings.
It's my privilege to introduce our first speaker, that is Dr. Joanna Kane-Potaka. She is basically Australian, am I right? And she did her graduation in economics and began her career as an agricultural economist, later moved to market research in agribusiness area. She had many degrees like professional PG diploma of marketing, MSc in global marketing. That sounds very interesting. And presently, you see, she's Executive Director, Smart Food, and Assistant Director, General External Relations, ICRISAT, Hyderabad. Without taking too much of her time, you see, I invite Dr. Joanna to speak on her topic, the need for solutions with a smart food triple bottom line. Dr. Joanna, please.
Thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure to get to know the society. Like this formal introduction, so lovely to meet you all. I'll just share my screen and hopefully this works. Let's see. Okay. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah,
Joanna.
it is visible.
Okay, it's full screen now?
Yeah, it is full screen.
Okay, all right, great. All right, I can't see you, but
Okay.
I just see my screen, but that's
Yes.
okay. So if you need to send me a message, just butt in. Okay, so it was interesting having the introduction and listening to that, because this isn't, I'm not going to talk about the technologies or the biotechnology options, but more about an approach to anything that's related to agriculture and food. And this is about most very good companies these days have a triple bottom line to their business approach. Most of them have a sustainability report. So this is about how can we adopt something similar, but customize it especially for agriculture and food. Now, I'm going to start with a story, and this is a story from Africa, because we're talking globally here. But you will find this in any country. So this is in Kenya, in eastern Kenya, where it's a dry zone. And of course, 60% of agriculture worldwide, but including in India, is in the dry zones. So of course, there's a lot of water shortages, and there's a lot of soil and other challenges. Now, these sort of zones are very suitable for crops like millets and sorghum that are very hardy. But what happened was, during difficult economic times, the government gave maize as a free food aid, and people got used to eating maize. They started growing maize, but maize was not suitable for those agroecologies. So what would happen, these farmers, literally their crop would survive 1 in 4 years. So 3 and 4 years, their crop was a failure, yet they kept planting it. And when you delve deeper and ask them why they would do that, well, it's because the value chains are well developed. Someone would come to the farm gate and sell the seed. They know they can sell the grain at the end of the season. They know pretty much what price they would receive. Now, if they went back to the crops that are more suitable for those agroecologies, then they'd have to find the seed. They'd have to then take the crop to market themselves. They don't know if they'd sell it, how much they'd sell it for. And a few generations have gone past now where they'd forgotten how to cook the millets and sorghum. They didn't realize they could make the same ugali dishes, whether it was with maize or whether it was sorghum or millet or a combination. So really, to help those areas, it was a case of looking at that whole value chain, developing the seed systems, the better varieties, helping them grow it, but also building the agribusinesses. So working with the women's groups in developing a lot of new products and businesses, and teaching people how to cook it and get used to the taste again. So it's a huge approach that was needed, but it was showing that really when you look at a solution, you've got to look more holistically. And it was also about the nutrition value as well. So our triple bottom line is good for you, good for the planet, good for the farmer. So how do you look at all those aspects together? And this was about bringing in more nutritious food. It was about bringing in food that was better for that agroecology, so it was better for the environment, and better for the farmer in that it was more resilient, it was going to survive better, However, it's not better for the farmer unless you look at that whole market side as well. If we look at arguably what are the two biggest challenges globally right now, whether you're in India or anywhere, the two biggest issues are climate change and health and nutrition. And the top graph there shows the pinkish color graph is the amount that rice will reduce in yields by 2050, which is not far away. So it's showing Brazil and Southeast Asia. Then the green there is wheat, also showing a significant decline, about more than 10% expected of decline in yields because of climate change. And then health and nutrition, we have malnutrition, we have a lot of anemia, we have the challenge of obesity, diet, and diabetes, all issues that are really, really significantly increasing. And food and agriculture has to play a part in bringing the best solutions to this. But we can only do it if we have that triple bottom line to any solution we bring in. So what we urgently need, we need solutions that cope with climate change, the water shortages, the soil degradation, the malnutrition, and those diet-based health issues. We know we need more diversity on farm. We know we need more climate-smart, resilient agriculture. We know we need more diversity in diets, and we know we need healthier diets. So any solution that looks at that should not look at anything in a silo. You shouldn't just look at water and not be concerned about the resilience to the rising temperatures from climate change. You can't look at climate change resilience and not look at nutrition. We have to have solutions that have that triple bottom line. Otherwise, we're just fighting against each other and we're working in silos and we're not going to get the best solutions. So this is what we call this triple bottom line, smart food triple bottom line. Good for you, good for the planet, good for the farmer. And if we look at what's happened over time, over the decades, so in the 50s and 60s, the focus was just on, if you see there, number one, food security. So it was just about having enough food to eat to stop starvation. Then over time, the recognition of hidden hunger and the need for nutrition security to be added to food security. So the quality of the food was just as important as the quantity of the food. Now the UN talks more about sustainable diets, diets that are more sustainable on the environment. But then what we're saying is we actually have to go a step further. We have to bring all this together and add the farmer in those solutions. So we need those smart food solutions that are good for you, good for the planet, and good for the farmer. And if we don't ensure the farmer's part of that solution, we're not going to, it's not going to be as sustainable. But what we found is the biggest hurdle for smart food and foods that fill all those criteria being in our diets is what we call the food system divide. So where for decades we've had the vast majority of investment in just three crops, the rice, wheat, and maize. And just like any divide, if you invest in something, and we're talking about, where do we put private equity investment? If you invest in something, it will do well, so it attracts more investment, so it does even better, and so it goes. And so it becomes more difficult to break into that and bring that diversity into the food system. So if you look at rice, wheat, and maize deliver over 50% of calories consumed globally, which is huge, just three crops. 45% of private sector agricultural research goes into just one crop. So this is globally. 45% of that research investment goes into maize. If you look at the relative change of contribution of crops to our diets based on calorie intake, you see here we've got a huge increase in oils, wheat, and rice. And then right at the other end, the big decrease, sorghum, cassava, and millets. So some of those very nutritious traditional crops have had major decreases in their contribution to our diets. Here's an example for India. If you look from 1960 to now, you look at the red rice, which is the red line on top. So you see that's tripled in its production in those years. Wheat has increased 800%. Now maize is taking off. It's increased 500%. And millets and sorghum have stayed very, very steady. And so what we see is to have a really big impact on the agriculture and food and these big issues of climate change and the health and nutrition issues, we saw that we needed to diversify staples. Now, this is only one solution, but I'm giving an example of a solution that can have big impact and a solution where we're taking a triple bottom line approach. So we said if we could go from the big three to create the big five, eventually the big seven, and so on, then because these staples typically take 70% of the plate, then that's how we can have really big impact, because you're talking the majority there. But it'll only have a positive impact if we do it with smart foods, so foods that fit that criteria of good for you, good for the planet, good for the farmer. And the approach has that smart food triple bottom line approach. How do we do it? And it's about also how do you learn from the successes of the big three, but learn also what was done wrong, and learn from that and actually apply this in the best way with all the knowledge we have now. Now, we saw also we needed a new approach. If we were to diversify staples, then we actually need to start at the consumer end first, because it's not going to be good for farmers if we don't have that demand there. And this is about changing consumption, changing human behavior. So how do you drive new demand? And then work with that whole value chain all the way back to the farmer to ensure they get the maximum benefit from this. And we saw that we needed to look both rural, urban, and you needed to look global. If you're going to bring in new staples, then they also need to be global commodities. They need to be major foods with big value chains to support them. So you really only could focus on just one or two foods at any one point in time, because you need to build those value chains. You need that investment across that whole value chain. So what we did is we selected millets and sorghum as the first big focus to bring back these staples, to diversify the staples. There's many different types of millets. These are some, the major ones grown in India. Now, the millets happen to fit those criteria of being good for you, good for the planet, good for the farmer. So good for you, if you look there, very, very rich in iron and zinc, and iron and zinc are in the top 3 micronutrient deficiencies globally. We just a week ago brought out the largest diabetes study around millets ever, and we did a systematic review and meta-analysis to show that millets have the low GI and they do reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Next week, we're actually bringing out another huge study that we've been doing, been working on it for years, to show that millets and sorghum do reduce overall cholesterol and are very helpful for cardiovascular diseases, and also reduces obesity. Also, finger millet, or the ragi, has 3 times the amount of calcium as milk, so extremely important for the growth of children, and extremely important for women, and particularly in an older age bracket as well. They have high dietary fiber, high antioxidants, they're gluten-free, they have good levels of protein as well. So they're super nutritious, plus they hit some of the very biggest needs that we have right now. They grow with minimal fertilizers and pesticides, so it's a lower cost for farmers, it's a lower carbon footprint. They survive with less water. They survive in higher temperatures, so they're climate smart. they haven't had the same investment. So there is a greater yield potential. Many of the other big three are closer to a yield plateau. Also, the millets and sorghum have the multiple uses, the feed and fodder, the human food, the brewing, and the biofuels. And the time was right now to bring them back. The climate change is a high priority. The nutrition and health issues are a huge priority. There's already the urban food trends, bringing these foods back into popularity, but there's still the aspirational market, there's still the niche market, but it's happening. There's the nostalgia still around the millets and sorghum, and they happen to fit some of the biggest Western health food trends. They're a superfood, an ancient grain, they're gluten-free, they're low glycemic index, good for losing weight. And of course, you may know in March this year, the UN General Assembly approved 2023 to be the International Year of Millets. So this is the time to invest in the millets, to be ready to set up the value chains, to have everything from the seed systems, the varieties, the products, etc., in place ready to fully leverage that International Year of Millets, because that's when there'll be global attention to them. So it's a great potential for investment, but also we've got to do it. The approach has to be with that triple bottom line approach and learning from the past. So really that's my final sort of comment, that there's both smart foods that are good for you, planet and farmer, and then it's also about that approach. Any solution we have that relates to food and agriculture, how do we ensure we don't work in silos, we adopt that good for you, good for the planet, good for the farmer, triple bottom line. So thank you very much.
I thank Dr. Joanna for a wonderful talk, very brief talk, and speaking on a very important talk related to global changes in the climate which we are having. We can take some questions here.
Yeah.
Because she finished her talk well before in time. So some of you can ask questions. Please raise your hands and ask questions. Thank you.
Hello. Let me congratulate Dr. Joanna for a very wonderful talk, which was very informative from the point of view of Indian perspective. Particularly, let me remind that one university in Himachal Pradesh, they had been doing a tremendous job in adopting millets for fighting against diabetes, type 2 diabetes, as you also mentioned. Now, in the ancient time, the farmers and the farming community in India, they were used to of consuming millets as a matter of fact, because we were not having enough wheat to cater the entire population. So most of the people, they were focusing on millets. And taking a turn round, we are coming again to millets, which were once upon a discarded food. And now because of the gluten-free food grains, it is being utilized a lot. And they have made some balls out of millets and other important millets so that they can be consumed as a refreshment, and they can fight against various types of routine diseases. Do you think that ICRISAT is also looking for the commercialization of millets, or they are in association with certain organizations to boost up the utilization of millets?
Yes, so ICRISAT's doing a lot of different initiatives along that whole value chain to help with commercializing millets. So there's work, for example, at the breeding end, doing the biofortification. So now breeding not only for yield, resilience, etc., but integrating nutrition when we do the breeding. Because in the past, all the conventional breeding, and people didn't even know what for example, the iron or zinc levels were. Now that's being integrated into the breeding, and it's a critical part. And that's part of that triple bottom line. It's, you've got to look at all those key aspects. So breeding is one of the areas. Where we have an incubator, so we have a couple of incubators. We have one which is for general agribusiness, and so we're supporting companies. We've got food technologists and looking at developing better products, and again, how you keep that nutritional value when you process the product. We also have a digital agriculture incubator, so then that's looking at newer solutions, digital solutions that can come and be more effective. For example, working even on the connecting farmers to consumers and more online traceability, etc. We also have, we do work where we help farming communities and women's groups in the rural communities to do primary level processing on farm. So community-driven processing, so that it adds value for the farmers, and it also gets them a better price. It's a better supply chain for those who are purchasing it, etc. And then lastly, of course, under the Smart Food Initiative, that is focused on actually driving the consumer awareness. So we've been doing a lot of scientific studies behind the nutrition and health claims and to substantiate that, and looking at how you better promote the millets. We know we need to change the image, and we know it's about both still attracting those high-end niche markets and involving chefs and others, because that helps change the image. But then it's also about how can you provide products that are affordable and still modern and can reach the broader consumer market. So we're working across the whole value chain to try to stimulate better commercialization for the millets.
That's right.
I think we have Anubhuti raising her hand. Can we have a question, Anubhuti, please?
Yeah. May take a chance to talk to Madam?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting talk. But for the farmers, the productivity gain is very, very important. And also the valuation. Only in case of ragi, and of course the millet, that is bajra, we could achieve. And in ragi particularly, because of nobilization, in the sense the crossing of Indian germplasm with the African germplasm, that is INDAF series, could achieve substantial yield gain. And same yield gain, if we can achieve with the barnyard millet, proso millet, little millet, and foxtail millet and kodo millet, certainly it will give a wonderful result. Secondly, the value addition is very, very important. Since these crops are grown in a poor soil, and the farmers are also, the economic conditions are quite, they are quite poor. So how best the value additions can be made and take through private equity, if you take it to the urban market, certainly this will give, a wonderful results. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can comment on that, because there's some important points. So on the variety selection and the productivity you mentioned, this is one of the most exciting things that the biofortified breeding program has been able to identify. What they could show that they could increase the iron and zinc level, but it was not at the expense of the yield. They could increase both together, and that was an important sort of thing to prove, because if it was a trade-off between one or the other, it'd be difficult. But they've proven that you can increase both, so that's very important, so the farmer still has a productivity. There's a process now being worked on, though, is how you can brand those varieties according to the nutrition level. Because the challenge is the farmers can't see the nutrition, the consumers can't see the nutrition in the grain. And the variety makes a huge difference. You can triple the amount of iron just by the variety you select. So can you imagine where governments are slowly starting to bring millets into midday meal scheme or the Angamwadi schemes? Now, if they could ensure the right variety is selected, they will triple the iron for those children, and that's really significant and makes a big difference. So policy and the way we introduce all of this has got to be really important. But I also wanted to mention, you mentioned the small millets. Of course, most of the efforts are going into the bajra, jowar, and ragi. The small millets have huge potential, especially as they can be cooked and eaten just like rice. So where white refined rice is 70% of the plate and eaten in nearly every meal, and it's a huge risk, huge, because the diabetes, the lack of nutrition in it, we have to find alternatives that aren't a major change for how people eat. And the small millets have that great potential. It still is going to take a consumer sort of behavior change, but there's much, much greater potential with that. So I think we mustn't forget the small millets. And this is where the entrepreneurs and the small to medium enterprises play a big role in creating and the products and making it modern and convenient and making it easier to bring products to the people.
Anubhuti, are you there? You have raised the hand. Can we have a question from you first? Anubhuti, I think if she is not there, yeah, we can have one more question.
Sir, I'm here.
So please go ahead with your question.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Madam, it has been noted that millets, for example, barnyard millets, they have high amount of phytic acid, which are able to activate thyroid stimulating hormones and thus causing thyroid. That is, high intake of millets can cause thyroid diseases, and these thyroid disease, that is a gland stimulating disease, that can also develop various other problems to the body. So do we have any way to decrease down these anti-nutritional factor in the value-added product from these millets, which are high in zinc and iron and so on?
Okay, I'm very glad you asked that. Okay, millets do not have any higher anti-nutrients or phytates than any of the other grains. They all have them. And millets do not have more than any of the others. Okay, so that's important. Now on the thyroid, there is only one study in the whole world about the millet's negative impact on thyroid, and it's a very bad study and there's no credibility to it. So there is no scientific proof at all that millets negatively impact the thyroid. Now, the phytates, although millets have a similar level of phytate or anti-nutrients to the other grains, it's still important to break down those anti-nutrients, because you can, as you know, you can absorb more of the nutrients if you have less of the anti-nutrients. What's really good is the way you process millets actually breaks them down. So you often get sprouted ragi or malted ragi drinks. The fermentation, so when you're eating idli, it's broken down. Even when you generally cook it, you roast it, etc. All that helps break down the micronutrients, the anti-nutrients. Now, we have done studies actually in about later this month. We've also done the world's biggest study on iron levels in millets and the impact on anemia. So I'm giving you secret information here, but what will come out later this month, it's already been approved by the journal, so we're just waiting for the release, is you can see that millets actually have such a high level of iron, if you get the right varieties, much, much, much higher than meat. Now, even though plant-based iron is absorbed less than meat-based iron, you still can get as much iron from millets as you can from meat. Now, that's really significant. So yes, it's important to prepare it. The more you can break down those anti-nutrients, the better. But they're not so high that it's a major concern. Very similar to most other grains.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joanna, for your informative talk. I can see there are some more questions for you, but due to paucity of time, we can have a panel. We will have a panel discussion after the 3 lectures, you see. So I think there people can raise their points. I think we must all thank Dr. Joanna. She has a meeting, you see, scheduled. So thank you very much. Hope to interact with you in future. Very nice and informative talk. The second speaker of the day is Dr. Shirshendu Mukherjee. He is a formally trained medical microbiologist. Interestingly, he has a very diverse profile. He is a law graduate. He is a management professional. He is registered technology transfer professional. He happens to be Indian ambassador to Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. And currently, he is officiating as Mission Director, Grant Challenges India, DBT, BIRAC, and BMGF Welcome Trust sponsored program, very important program for promoting research in emerging areas of biotechnology. He is head IP and TT and Communication Division in BIRAC, that is Biotechnology Industry Research and Assistance Council. Today, he will be speaking about funding opportunities for startups.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And namaskar and good evening.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
Please
you, sir.
Go ahead.
Can I share my screen, sir?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Can anybody make me the presenter so that I can share my screen?
You can share your screen, you see. There is no issue.
Can you see my slides now, sir?
No, we are still not able to see.
I think somebody has to make me an organizer or something like that so that I can share.
Okay. Subodh, can we ask your office to go for presentation?
Yes, let me check.
Shirshendu, please wait for some time.
Yeah, no problem, sir. I have the slide deck with me also, so if I can be made the organizer, I can definitely.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it is here.
Okay. So,
go ahead, Dr. Shirshendu, please.
Yes. So, good evening and namaskar. Our most respected Professor Hanchal and Professor Singhal and Professor Bhatnagar and all the distinguished members of the society as well as all the attendees today. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here today and talk about the funding opportunities for startups. Last 2 decades have been working in this field to support funding and working with a funding agency. So I will be happy to share. Begin with, I think I should thank Professor Singhal, who has been a mentor and a guide to us. And I would like to share you that my first class in MSc Microbiology, sir took when we started joining along with Professor Anjana Sharma. So I think what we are today is because of this department and the mentorship provided by the faculty in our department in Jabalpur University. So today I will be talking about the funding opportunities. I come from an organization called BIRAC, which is the Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, which is can I have the next slide, please? Which is undertaking and public sector undertaking under the Department of Biotechnology, and I will speak about it and the opportunities available there, how these startups can really work around that. And
can we have the next slide? I think SPR office can. Are you listening, SPR office?
Can I have the next slide, please? Or you go to the full screen mode. Full screen mode, please. Okay, So before we talk about getting funds and how to raise funds for a startup, innovation program or any of the innovation programs which startups generally work. And I'm really pleased that after me, Professor Saxena will speak, who himself has created a startup, and he will talk to you about his life journey. So I think any innovation, if you take, can be categorized into 3 categories. It can be a discovery, that is, we call it a basic research, or development, which is also called the translational research, or delivery, which we do it, for example, the clinical trials, the field trials, how the program can be taken to a level where it can be commercially de-risked and exploited and absorbed by the market. So those are the delivery trials, or the field trials, or the clinical trials, we call it. So I will be today speaking about the first 2 pillars, which is the discovery or the development pillars in our innovation cycle. So my friends, before we start looking for funds in our innovation landscape or our research program, we need to really do a strong due diligence in ourselves first, in our research programs first, and then start looking for funding, and literally ask some strong questions to ourselves before we plan out of our research program. I always tell, I do a lot of grant writing workshops and grant clinics. That is a mandate of BIRAC, and which we do it regularly. Especially in these COVID times, we have been running the COVID Suraksha program for the government. We are working on COVID Consortium. The Grand Challenges does a lot of programs. So, what we tell our applicants and our grantees who come to us is, winning a grant or raising a fund is how compelling story you tell. That is very, very important. In our younger days, we have heard fairy tales, which used to start with once upon a time and ends by happily lived ever after. So our research program, our funding, our application should talk about that. It should start with what is the gap. Understand. So if you see this tabular graph in front of us, is what is the problem you are working on? Understand the problem first. That is a very, very critical element in our innovation cycle. You have to understand the problem. What is the gap analysis? What is the landscape look like? What is the congestion in that place? Congestion means if too many people are working in the similar space and the research is literally going to a very, very high level, then what will happen is, then your program needs to be at the very top end. So to overcome that research, for example, you are working on certain issues on diabetes, which is one of the major problems in India and the global world as well, the global community. So if you are working in some space during that, your science should be at that level. But if you are working in something which our country needs, like malaria, dengue, chikungunya, the problem which we face regularly, and which is the problem of these tropical countries, your program or your angle will be of a different level. So please understand the problem first, then also look at the market pull and push environment. Then look at the program. How risky is the program? We in the government set up fund risky programs. Our mandate is to fund risky programs. So look at what big risk you are carrying, and when you raise the fund, tell us what is the risk you are involved in, and upfront you should describe the risk. Then raising funds and getting funds for the program becomes much easier for you. And then finally, the infrastructure. These days, we don't fund very high-level infrastructure. No funding body funds it. But what we always encourage is to do collaborative research. For example, you need to do a mass spec, and you don't have a mass spec in your facility, but a center around you or another city has a mass spec. Try to bring a collaboration between them, or try to do a contract research between them. That will really help to build your story very strong, and also help you to tell the story to a funding agency that I don't have this equipment, but what I will do is I will be taking the help of this group, and we will collaborate with them, or we'll do a contract research with them where we pay fee for service and get the work done. So I think we need to really look at a 360-degree program when we start thinking about a research problem, and that will really help you, my colleagues, that when you raise funds, it will really be useful to do that. Then if you are in a development phase where you have done some proof of concept program, now you want to translate that proof of concept into a level where it can really walk through, or you want to cross the valley of death, which is the most critical phase in our research cycle. You need to have a bigger thinking around it. what is the IP strategy, what is the regulatory strategy around this. And you may not be you might be a hardcore scientist, but you really require to talk to group of people or build them a collaboration with you, bring them those people inside your program who can talk about IP or regulatory and take your program to the next level. So I think the idea of showing this slides to you all is, before going to a funding agency to raise funds, you should ask yourself these questions first. Because all funding agency, I'm not going to show the application form which we look at, but the application form will have all these questions, and you need to have a story to tell, or your program should talk about all these programs before you write the application. May I have the next slide, please? So the next slide will talk about how to approach for funding in various places. So can I have the next slide, please?
I think, Dr. Shirshendu, you have to bear with us because there are some hanging problems at our end in the office.
Okay, no problem, sir.
So,
Can you see my screen?
yeah, yeah. The next slide has come.
About BIRAC, can you see this slide?
Yeah, we are seeing.
Okay, so I think my share screen is working. So I will. So I come from a BIRAC organization, which is a not-for-profit Section 8 PSU under the Department of Biotechnology. And our job is to really fund startups. Startups means not only startups at the people who have graduated or completed their PhD program, but at a collegiate level, at a postgraduate level, or at a PhD level, or people who are faculties also. We fund those, and our job is to enable the innovation ecosystem in this country. So we at the BIRAC has been created by the Department of Biotechnology to create and enable the innovation ecosystem in this country.
Sorry, Dr. Shirshendu, we are not able to see your screen.
You're not able to.
We have stopped from remotely. Now you can operate.
You can see my screen, sir? No.
No, not still. I think with the Meet, you see, you can simply present your screen and go. Then you will see the windows over there, and please go ahead then.
Yes, I am doing that only, sir.
So, Dr. Bhatnagar, can we have the original thing now in place?
Yeah, actually, there is a problem because otherwise the system will hang up.
Yeah, that's
because so he is trying his level best to bring it back.
Still not able to see.
Now, sir?
No. Yeah. Now we are able to see.
This is, I think.
Is it yours?
No, this is yours, I think. Okay, no problem, sir.
We go with this.
Okay. Sorry for that, but I don't know what is
it. It's okay. Please go ahead.
So now the funding pathways, where we should go for funding. That is the next question, which will be very, very important. So there are various funding channels available to us right now, and I can share with you with very strong confidence that if you have a good program, good science is must. Without science, no funding is possible. 60 to 70% is science, and 30% is how compelling story you tell. Funding is not a problem these days. We have very, very strong funding space in the creative space. The government of India has number of funding agencies which we work around and we fund. Then there are philanthropic funding agencies. There are venture capitals which fund at a later stage. And then, of course, the private equity funds. Can I have the next slide, please? But before we get all these funds, I think we need to do our homework very, very strongly. Research, it doesn't mean that you should approach any funding bodies. Funding bodies are available, but we should do our own research on funding bodies. There are very now funding bodies are really very flexible. We are supposed to be accessible to all of you, so that you reach out to them, visit them, or talk to them to a virtual means, and they will be happy to guide you as well. So I think you need to do a research on the funding bodies and target a funding source which is really fits into your remit. Lot of times we receive application which is a very different sort of a funding program, and it comes to us. After 3 months, a simple reply goes from our end that this doesn't fit into the limit of our scheme. So I think that sort of research we should all do, who are aspirants of taking funds, or startups which are trying to raise funds from a funding source. Next slide, please. So, and then what you have to do is you have to look at what are the current trends, what are the limitations and restrictions of the funding bodies, what have they funded recently. It is all in the websites of all funding agencies, that what have they funded recently, and who are the decision makers, who are the committee members. I think that all research, if you all do, I think you will know what sort of funding turn or pattern is there, and what is the review process ultimately. These days, a lot of funding bodies have two-step funding reviews. One, initially they will ask to submit a 2-pager, and then if you are shortlisted, you have to submit a full application. So there are various patterns different funding body follows. I think we should be very clear. I think we should be a student of a RFP of a particular funding program to make our application very strong. Next slide, please. And one more thing, what are the deadlines of submission application? How long? Always we have seen, if we have a deadline of 14th August or 10th August at 5 p.m., maximum application comes from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Never do that. That time only your internet will fail, your power will go off. Always the funding cycle is open for almost 30 to 45 days. But I think invariably people wait for the last day to submit the applications. And we have been telling all our applicants, never do that. Submit in time, and last minute what happens is, and we at the system, we cannot accept these days, all are taken online. 1 minute delay also will reject your application. So submit your application on time so that it gets reviewed properly and gets accepted into the system. We have seen lots and lots of time people submit at 2 minutes past 5 p.m. and the application is turned down because it is 2 minutes late. You worked so hard, but you didn't submit on time. So I think we all need to really look at all these things, and then understand the process well. One more important thing which I will talk about is when we submit the application, we submit it in English. I think what we should always do is we should write the program and ask one of our colleagues to read it once again. A lot of times there are issues in your expression in writing the application, and that is a reason. It might be a very good science, but due to the expression which you have followed, or you are not able to express what you write in the application, your application is turned down. So that is one of the important things we should all follow, that when you write, give it to your good friend or a mentor or your professor or a teacher to review the application so that they will critique on it and really help you. One of the very important thing is the title of your project. Never make a title more than 12 words or 15 words. A lot of time we see applications, long titles coming out, which really, is not advisable always. Make a sweet and a nice title, which is not more than 12 to 15 words to take your application to the next level. Next slide, please. Always remember the review process generally takes 5 to 7 reviewers read the application. There are different angles which reviewers apply to read this application. So you have to see that when it is reviewed by a third person who doesn't see your face, who doesn't know your science well, how strongly you convey through a written message to the reviewers your science, and where your what you call your experience or your thought in telling a story comes in play, where you have to tell them a compelling science. This is the gap. This is the landscape. This is the unmet need. This is the published work. This is the review which has been done, and now you are trying to fill in this gap. And by filling this gap in, you are trying to address a particular challenge. That should come out, and that will really help to take your application to the next peak. Also, the key deliverables has to be SMART. SMART means simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. You have to maintain the timelines very, the next slide will tell you about that. Next slide, please. You have to write your milestone very, very smartly. Never write a milestone that first 6 months I will review the literature, I will recruit staff, I will get reagents, I will order reagents. Never do like that. You have to write measurable milestones to win an application, so the application moves forward. Try to express that I will be trying to express this gene into this cell so that this level of protein expression is achieved. That is a measurable milestone, and it depends upon your science what you are doing, but you have to really write about that. May I have the next slide, please? There are a number of common shortcomings, and this is for my example I have written. You have to know about your related research. A lot of times we find that the applicant is not connected to its work. That really puts, and we at the we are called the gatekeepers in a funding agency. The first application is read by us. So what happens is if the story doesn't come out well, if you think that the research doesn't relate, it will not go to the next step. So I think that is the idea, to tell you that you need to really flush things out and be very crisp and clear when you put out your application. Next slide, please. Most reason it is very poorly written, a lack of convincing preliminary data. If you have, please share. Lot of times people don't share preliminary data, and that literally brings down application down, and literally shows that you're not able to show your strength. But if you have some preliminary data to show, please show that, so that the funding agency has some confidence in you, that you have done some work and you have some data to tell that story well. So that is always it should be aligned to it. Next slide, please. I just talked about BIRAC. Actually, I state the slide sequences. So BIRAC, as I talked, is not for profit, and we really are there to support startups and researchers at a grassroots level to take their innovation to the next level. Next slide, please. So we have research programs and funding pots from pre-proof of concept to, I will not describe the schemes, but we have programs for startups from pre-proof of concept. You have a concept, you want to validate that. We have programs from students level to a researcher level to a faculty level. Till every step, you have proof of concept, we can then scale up until the product gets into the market space or validated. We have funding pots for all of them. Next slide, please. So if you see, we work with the enablers, the startups, the innovators from ideation to late stage development, and these are the key names we have. So we really support that, and the idea is not to support, just give them funds, but we are handholders and we are enablers. We have 50 plus or 55 plus incubators across the country, which have basic infrastructure to support these startups. And they're not only these incubators help them to write their grant application to get their funds, but they also support in providing mentorship, providing necessary facility, connecting them to the other collaborators in the field, and also to provide support in any IP issues, regulatory issues. So I think this incubation network, which we have created in the length and breadth of the country, that is there to support the startup community to take their innovation to the next level. And these are called bionests. So these are almost, please visit our website to see where are they, and you should really use them to take it to the next level. Next slide, please. So we provide incubation space, we provide access to research resource, all the facilities, helping them to get reagents, and mentoring, and also technology transfer and management. Next slide. I am conscious about the time. So I think we work with academia industry partnership. We have now started a scheme called PACE, where we connect academia to a startup. There are a lot of research programs which academia has, but are not able to, de-risk them and take it to a next level. So startup ecosystem, we are promoting a startup to connect with an academia, take their innovation or a published work or a IP which they have in the shelf, and take it to a level, and we will fund both the academia and the startup to connect that, take it to a level, validate it, and take it to a level where it can be commercially exploited. So this is a very novel feature we have created just now to take it to the next level. And then we help them into filing IPs. We help them to pass through the regulatory. We have created an open darbar sort of thing, which I think you all should use it. Every first Friday of the month from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, anybody can visit us and ask their queries in funding, in regulatory, in IP, in connecting it to the companies. We really do that, and you can walk in and get your, and we have experts from all those fields sitting there from our offices across India as well as from various other ministries to help you to sort that out. It is called the First Hub. Please visit the website to get those information and come to us. I think iteration and talking to a funding agency really builds the confidence in the innovators and the startup community to take it to the next level. Next slide, please. So this is one of our impacts. We have been really, this is all very dynamic. It changes almost every day. Next slide. This is what I wanted to say. Never wait for the last moment to submit the application. Submit it on time and take it to the next level. So I think I will just skip the next slides, please. I think 14 reasons why proposal fails. I think I'll not describe them. All we know, and we need to really brush ourselves so that this is not we don't encounter all these things. Next slide. This is a very important question, and a lot of people ask that if an innovator submits an application and it doesn't get through, can I recycle that proposal? Of course, yes. What we find is we give very good reviewers comments to our innovators to see that why your proposal has failed. If you some of them take it very seriously and come back to us, and some of them get annoyed that no, ye to garbad hua, ye isliye nahi hona chahiye tha, reviewers ko kuch pata nahi hai, ye nahi hai. So it is a different way our applicants take it. But we have seen that some of you who take the comments of the reviewers well and resubmit your application, take it, I think 60 to 70% of the time they are successful in the second round. So I think this is a good thing which always we should consider to take it to the next round. Next slide, please. So this is, I think, my second last slide. This, I think, what we should always consider, look your application to a 360-degree angle. Of course, I said science is the most basic thing. Without science, any innovation will not work. 60 to 70% is science. But try to cover your application and build your application along the 30 other portion as well, right? Write your application nicely. That is in good English. Build collaboration, the expertise which you don't have. Bring in, that doesn't mean that you should have all the expertise. Bring in collaborations. Bring in collaborative research or contract research in your application and tell the funding agency that I don't have this experience, but I am bringing this experience from some other group. So I think that really enriches and that builds the confidence of a funding agency in you to fund you, because you have openly told us that I have this expertise, I don't have this expertise. So that really builds that application stronger to take it to the next level. So that is the program. Your program requirement has to be very, 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 very strong. Next slide, please. This is not my slide. I have borrowed it from somebody and I have quoted that. So this is a difference between a good and a bad application. So, somebody, when you write funding, when a startup writes, you should be always clear about the relevance, the methods has to be clear, and who are the key players. You have to be very, very clear. You have to sell yourself so that, give your strengths, give yours to the funding agency so that the funding agency has a confidence in you. And I think next slide this is my contact details, and I am accessible, but I think Professor Singhal sir has all my contacts. You can get it. Thank you very much. And thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today. And I really appreciate that. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you, Dr. Shirshendu, for such a wonderful talk. You see, you are hand-holding startups for many years now, but it will do wonders for the early researchers also, who want to get funding for the research, etc. over there. So I think we can take 2-3 questions here.
Let me congratulate Dr. Shirshendu on behalf of Society for Plant Research and Vegetors. I am very happy to apprise you that me and Pradeep Singhal had been the classmate and we worked together for a very long time. we are having a very long association. It was a wonderful talk, and particularly I want to know that who can be the collaborators, means whether the government universities, institutions, or the private institutions, they can also be associated with the startup candidates who want to start up research, whether the private institutions can also take lead and they can collaborate with them or not. This is my simple question.
Shirshendu, can you unmute yourself, please?
Sure, sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your good wishes and blessings, sir. See, sir, collaborators, and very important questions. Collaborators doesn't see boundaries. It can be a private institutions. It can be a individual researchers also, or individual consultants as well. It can be a government institute. It can be a private university. We are trying to create innovation networks in the private universities as well. So private institutions, government institution, private individuals can be collaborators. And we have, because the young startups, lot of time have difficulty in reaching, so they bring in their mentors or PhD guide as their collaborators and their guide. We really encourage that as well, because there are two, my guru, Professor G.P. Agrawal, told me when I was leaving that there are two categories, two people in your life who will never always be happy and bless you with your progress. One is your PhD guide, and one is your parents and your teachers. They are the people who will always, bless you and always cherish your progress and talk about you. Your colleagues may not like your progress, your friends may not like your progress, but your teacher, your mother, father, your PhD guide will always like your progress. So I think I still remember that. So I think it's a lot of the time we see that the young innovators bring in their PhD guides as their mentors and collaborators. And we are really happy to bring those collaborators into the picture. And we will, and as the funding agency, we really encourage that, because the confidence level, the confidentiality level between us, a startup or a person who starts up is, and it's a PhD guide and or a mentor is very, very strong. So I think that needs to be really built in. So we encourage that, sir. And upfront in the application, they should mention it, that they have worked along with, and we should take it up.
Yeah, just I would like to add a little more things. I am in some of the committees of the BIRAC. I'm a evaluation committee member also. There I've seen the projects are evaluated very in a transparent way, and once the research takes place, then how best that can be translated or delivered, that also is very transparent. That's what I observed. And here, in India and in most of the universities, many PhDs, after completion of their PhD, they keep quiet. But what I suggest is they can apply to BIRAC for some incubation or fellowship, something like that. Certainly, BIRAC will be very happy to support that program. And instead of keeping idle in the home, they should take the facility of the government of India through BIRAC and see that their career is, they come up well in their life. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? We can have one question more. Any young researcher? Okay, I congratulate Dr. Shirshendu for speaking to us in a very, very simple language, you see, and making this complicated scenario a little bit simpler for the benefit of youngsters as well as those people who are really keen to have the startups. BIRAC has been a success story, you see. We know very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shirshendu.
I think we can have our last speaker of the day, Dr. Sanjay Satsanga. He is Professor of Biotechnology at Thapar Institute of Engineering Technology, Patiala, since 2015. He has a wonderful career, you see. Happens to be our student, but is himself a founder and CEO, you see, Chief Executive Officer of his own innovation startup, that is Farm Bio Innovations LLP, since 2018. And I can tell you, I can share that this particular startup has earned many rewards already from national as well as international peers. He's a highly decorated professor, earned nearly 20 awards, actively involved in academic and administrative progress of IIT Patiala. His researches have earned him 4 patents, about 7 research projects, lot many publications. And today we will be speaking on startups in biotechnology, scope and path ahead. He is the most suitable person for our theme today because he hails from private organization. He can share with us the real scenario over there. Dr. Sanjay Satsanga, please.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind introduction. I am thankful to the Society of Plant Research, Professor Bhattacharya, Professor Hanshinal, and my own guru, Professor Pradeep Singhal, for providing me this platform to talk to you all. Rather, I have been his MSc student as well as I completed my PhD under in the same department. So I had the blessings of Professor Singhal always, and it is because of the blessings of our teachers that we are successful in our lives. So, with this brief thanks, I would like to start my presentation. What has been discussed with Dr. Shirshendu Mukherjee, my senior, has been very apt to this seminar or webinar, and I'll be further elaborating upon my experiences on this. So, let me share my screen. Is my slide visible? Is my slide
Yes,
visible?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you very much. So my topic of today's intervention or talk is startups in biotechnology scope and path ahead. We have heard about funding, process of innovation, and process of development of research. But what I have experienced throughout the year, I'll be sharing across, and it is also going to give you some basic steps of understanding that how biotechnology is going to impact our lives in coming 20 years from now. And with this statement, I'll say that if you look at biotechnology, it is the sunrise sector, not only in across the globe, but in India also, and has been very aptly highlighted by the Make in India and the IBF in 2020 also that biotechnology is going to be the and if you look at the Indian position, it is one of the top 12 destinations of the world for biotechnology research and is sharing something like 3% of the global
Sanjay,
biotechnology
I'm
input.
sorry to interrupt you. Can you go for full screen in presentation mode?
Sir, I am in full screen, but
Okay.
let me again
Slideshow,
share it.
slideshow. Can you go?
He's in full screen, Dr. Singhal, but because the window is going on side by side, that's why
Okay.
you are
Okay.
finding it a little smaller.
Okay.
I will go again. I'll share again.
Okay. Just go for slideshow.
I have started the show.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Go ahead, Sanjay. No problems.
So the Indian biotechnology industry is 3% of the global biotech industry, and currently we are having something like 5,000 companies, which out of which 760 companies are core industries, and around 4,240 are startups, which are continuously adding up ever since the Make in India program and the Startup India programs have been launched in various sectors of biotechnology. Because if you talk about biotechnology, it has got several subsectors in it. And if I talk about those subsectors, it is biopharma, bioagriculture, bioindustrial, bioservices, which includes bioinformatics, IT, clinical research organizations and research services, which are known as contract research and manufacturing services, CRAMS, right? So if you look at the valuation of our industry, it is valued at around 70 billion US dollars. This is the current data of 2020, and we are expecting it to reach by 150 billion dollars by 2025, as per the vision of our Prime Minister, for India being a 5 trillion economy, of which biotechnology is going to contribute a huge chunk of it. So if you look at the sector-wise distribution of revenue and the products, well, biopharma is going to have the major impact with 62%. Then comes bioagri, and then is bio CROs, bio IT research, and last is the bioindustrial. So our emphasis is and this has become more prominent ever since we had a impact of COVID-19 coming into. There have been several startups working on different diagnostic parameters, diagnostic kits. Apart from that, there have been people who have been developing medicines, Ayurvedic based, non-Ayurvedic based, and even we have seen a drug coming out of DRDO for prevention or against the COVID-19. So looking into these aspects, startup is the right forum or place to have one's own idea coming into a big into a mature vision or a product into the market. Whenever you complete your PhD, whenever you complete your doctorate and move out, you end up in joining a company which has got its own goals and visions, and you don't have to work according to them. So if you want to be your own boss, a startup is the right thing. And when I started, I completed my PhD from Rani Durgavati University in around 2000. And I had one project at that time. The ecosystem in India for the startup was not very good. Though I got a technology promotion program by the DST, but it could not see the light of the day. And ultimately, I had to switch over into academic research. And that is how I moved out of the startup business, and I entered into the academics and academic based research. But if you look at starting a biotech company, then there are certain questions which you need to answer, and you need to introspect yourself. And these questions are what, why, who, when, where, and how. If you can answer these questions, what, why, who, when, where, and how, you can talk about a biotech company and you can start a biotech company. The question is what do you understand by what? Well, do you have a good idea? The what means, do you have a good idea? Is it good enough? Your idea which you are trying to take it as a product or a technology or a service, is it good enough? So to answer that, the first thing is it should be science-based. Dr. Mukherjee also emphasized in his presentation that it should be science-based. Science comes first. So it should be a scientific intervention. And then it is based on scientific innovation, integrity and continuous improvement in all aspects of business through scientific and industrial methods. So you'll always have to dwell sorry, on the scientific part. Your science should be very strong. Your research aspect or the norm obviousness or the uniqueness of your research should be very crystal clear. I will highlight you an idea which is not yet exploited in India. So your technology should be actually a deep tech technology, deep tech based disruptive product or a technology. By disruptive product, I mean to say a product that will shake the market. So that no such technology is ever existing, and the outcome or the result of using the technology is much better than the available technologies. So that is the first point which addresses that, is the idea good enough? Then comes why. Why do you want to have this idea? Well, it is when you are using your research, you analyze that one of the aspect of the research is very good and it should be pursued for a longer time, and it will be culminated into a product or a technology. And where you are working, your university or institution can help you in realizing this dream or challenge, because nowadays universities and institutions have been allocated startup incubators Students pursuing PhD can also register in these, and alongside doing their PhD can also take up startup activities. So that is also possible. We have a policy of such kind in our university. There is a sorry, there is a part-time arrangement which is done, and this can be taken into the process of setting up your own startup, and then you can have an arrangement with the university. You can transfer your product or take up the product from the university by technology transfer, and you can sell it. So that is one part. Second part is, why do you want to do yourself? Because you want to convince yourself and the world that by developing this technology or a product, at the end of the day, you will have a jackpot. And that means you are going to be very successful. So that is yet another very important aspect of taking up startups. And if I look from the investor's perspective, to make money, simple. Any investor, any investor and a financial institution will always see how much money are you going to make out of this technology or product. So these are the three basic points, the three basic whys which you need to answer when you are trying to put up a startup company. So this is the groundwork which you need to do. Actually, then comes who? What is your role in the company? Are you full-time? Are you part-time? So as I told you that as a doctoral student also, if you are pursuing your research, you can be a part-time CEO of your company also, and you can translate your research directly at the beginning so that the incubation time is reduced or cut short. That is going to have a very significant impact in your journey of startup. So you can be a part-time associate, you can be a full-time associate. Once you have completed your doctoral program, you can continue in the university scenario as a full-time entity using the science and technology entrepreneurship park or the various technology business incubators which are granted to universities and institutions. They have their funding, they have the infrastructure, they have the space, they have everything to provide you an ample ecosystem which can help you in progressing as a business, progressing your business enterprise or business research-based enterprise. So you can have roles of a founder, of a CEO, of a chief scientific officer. You can also be on the board of directors, or as Dr. Mukherjee told you, you can bring your teachers who are your mentors as on the board of directors, or keep them into scientific advisory board, so that your scientific inputs are always looked critically and you do not fail when you are talking about innovative science and technological product development. So that is another aspect that needs to be addressed very categorically. And then you have to select a team. The team, not only as you, because when you are saying that you are going to start up a company, you need to have a team which knows other aspects of the company functioning, finance, marketing, market research, all these things, sales, all these things are a part and parcel of the company. And as a scientist, you cannot be doing all these jobs. But initially, you will know, you should know, and you should be aware and knowledgeable enough to understand all the aspects of running a startup company. So the question is when and where? When do you have this great idea? When did you have this great idea of starting a company? Were you employed? Well, as a student, you are not employed. But as a GRF or as a doctoral student, you are a part and parcel of the ecosystem of the university. So you can be a part of that system, or you can have an arrangement with the university for developing or starting up a project. You have to convince the university authorities that yes, this project or this project or research is going to culminate into a very good product which will have a high commercial return. So you will need to have, you will need to be very clear about your ownerships. When it comes to ownership, your PhD product, IIT Delhi has done it. You can convert your PhD into a startup project. They have done it. IIT Delhi has done it. But here in Thapar, we still have not done it. But what we have done is we have given the licensing part that it is licensed to you on bare minimum royalty. The royalty is between 2 to 5%. We will only charge 2 to 5% royalty when your product reaches into the market, when there is attraction in the market. At that time, at that very point, you will be able to give a royalty to the institute. And licensing, if it is your own project, there is no fees. But if there is a patent, the patent is shared between the inventor and the uh, university in a ratio of 30 to 70. 30 for the university and 70 for the inventor. And the inventor can share with his company in a 50-50 basis ratio. That is what I have done with, in my case, we have a arrangement with our university where the university is an equal partner in the patent which I have applied for. And as per our IP policy, we'll be sharing 30-70, and out of that 70, which I'll get, so I'll share with my company because my company is also who I'm looking at in the patent. So that is how you can have to be very clear at the beginning of the incubation when you are trying to incubate. You have to be very clear, crystal clear about all these nitty-gritties, legal, financial loopholes to be very clear in the beginning because this is going to affect your operation. And when you file an IP, there is a clause called freedom to operate, FTO, and you have to be very clear when because they ask you that are you free to operate. That is based on your these documentations done with your university. So it is very necessary and pertinent to be very clear about your relationship. For example, if I talk about Thapar Institute, where I work, my brain is owned by Thapar Institute. The time I am there at Thapar Institute, anything and everything which I do as a part of research will be the property of Thapar Institute, but would be shared on an equitable basis. And that is what is being done. So the moment my company graduates out and I do some more research or some new research, then Thapar Institute will not be a part of the system because I have left the ecosystem. I don't work for Thapar Institute. I have left the institute. That becomes my own property. But this again is a very important facet to understand that you are trying to develop a non-conflicting relationship between your startup and your institute and your startup company. And that is going to have a great impact on you because once you develop this kind of a relationship, tomorrow when you are a successful entrepreneur, you may license many technologies coming from the institute on a nominal rate, and institute will also be happily sharing us because of you being an alumnus as well as a door to convert their academic research into public technological products. That would be a very important impact for the institute itself because it will mark the institutional technological growth. So, and that will be even a role model for many young students to take up these kind of activities. So that is why when you are talking about having a great idea, it is pertinent and it is very nice to talk to your university very clearly, very freely, and have a clear cut terms and conditions done with them at the beginning so that you do not have any hassles of any kind.
Sanjay, are you still on slide 2?
Sir, I am on slide 7.
So it is not moving here, you see.
I'm surprised. Again, let me share, sir, again.
Yeah. Now they are moving, you see. You can come to directly to slide 7. Yeah. These are all covered, I think. Slide 8, you can come.
Yeah, this I have covered. I hope the slide is moving.
Yeah,
So,
slide.
universities and institutes are the perfect platform for creating spin-offs. And this is the last 8th slide. How? Is it visible, sir?
Yeah, visible.
So now when I talk about how, now you are going to talk, you are becoming a businessman. And when I talk how are you going to achieve or how are you going to start up a biotech company, you have to talk about business before science. You have done your science, you know your science is good, your science is innovative, your science is strong, your product is going to be strong, you are technologically sound, the product is unique, you have an IP, and everything is clear. Now you need to understand the business. And to understand the business, I'm sorry to say in this August gathering that well, scientists are seldom not aware of the difference between science, technology, product, and company. And that happened with me also. I don't have any shame in accepting that, because I also, when I talked to my first incubator, when I presented my research, they told me very categorically, you are talking like a scientist. You're not talking like a businessman. At the end of the day, I want to know how much money I get back from this product. So I was stunned that that is how is the perspective of an investor. That is how is the perspective of a venture company. So then how a scientist should talk like a businessman? That is what is a training which is generally given in an incubation program or an acceleration program, that you understand that how you talk business before science. Science has to be there. Unless the science is clear cut, unless the science is proven, the business cannot start. But when you are talking for investment, when you are talking for money, you should know how to present your case as a businessman. So for being a true entrepreneur, scientists must learn to put business ahead of science when developing a commercialization. That is very important. And what are the part and parcel of commercialization study? What is the unique selling point this product is going to do in the market? What are the value propositions? What will the user get at the end of the day? What is the proposition like? What will the company get who will be selling this product at the end of the day? So what are the value propositions? What are you going to offer? That is important. What is the business plan? How are you going to take it to the market? How are you going to launch it? What will be the different channels of marketing you will be adopting? That is what is required. Business plan is never static in any company till date. Even the established food industry also, business plan is never static. It always changes, and you need to have a flexible business plan. But there should be a business plan, and then you should have a very sound IP portfolio. That is the patent portfolio, because it gives you a valuation to a company when an investor.
I think slide 7 is still showing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, please go ahead with that. This is what you explained, I think.
Yeah, can I move without
Yeah.
without the show part? If that is going to create a problem.
No, you move it manually.
Here only I will move it manually
Yeah.
without going to the show mode.
Okay.
So now when I talk about creation of a biotech company, what are the desired attributes of an individual? What should the person have in him or her to become a entrepreneur? I was in a biotechnology entrepreneurship camp at C Camp Bangalore, and I found that an equal number of representation of entrepreneurship or people founders were coming from the female group also. There were equal number of females also participating in the same program. So the question is, what are the attributes? What should you look at when you want to become an entrepreneur? And let me tell you, I started very off. I was standing between those who were aged between 20 to 30 or something like 18 to 30 group. And we were only 5 or 6 people who were out of the league. One was a group, one was a couple of around 75. They were working and they were called because they had a very good product with them. So the knowledge which is required is of marketing and finance apart from technology and science in a person. And you should be aware that you are going to create an economic organization which is going to be under risk. It is not a foolproof system. It is going to be under risk. So, sir, I'll try to put it in a projection mode so that the figure becomes more clear.
Sorry?
I am trying to put the slide into projection mode so that picture becomes
Okay,
clear.
okay. No
Is
issue.
it
No
visible?
issue.
It
It is visible. I think it is readable by everyone.
Yes. So if you are a bio entrepreneur, what are the attributes? The attributes is confidence. The confidence to a level that you can face criticism and yet be humble. Perseverance, but decisive. You should be multitasking and having a capacity to take multiple roles. When I started as a CEO, I had to do multiple things, from writing an agreement to writing business plan to writing everything, I did single-handedly. Then I had one of my colleagues coming in. He was a guy from economics, and he further helped me out in refining. So similarly, you have to work. You have to be a problem solver also. And very important and very pertinent aspect is you should be very good at communicating what you want to convey to the people or what you want to convey to the business group which you are addressing to. Because when you go in for competition, there is a 2 minutes elevator pitch. Now, what is a 2 minutes elevator pitch? Suppose you get to know, or you know that you are moving in a lift and you find Jack Ma is moving around with you in the same lift, and you want to tell him that this is your business. In 2 minutes, you have to explain him to everything that he becomes interested to invest in your company. So that is called a 2 minutes elevator pitch. How do you prepare that? What are the types and what are the words which have to be used when you are trying to present to a high profile investor in that 2 minutes are some points which needs to are some points which one has to undergo a training like. Otherwise, it is very difficult to really do these kind of activities. So there, that means you are advertising yourself in a very short time. So that skills have to be learned and honed, right? And similarly, you have to have an adaptability. You have to be open to suggestion and advisors, but at the same time evaluate them that they are very pertinent to your enterprise or not. So that is these are the desired attributes of an individual. Coming to the types of companies which you can create in India, which come under the startup umbrella, that means you can create a private limited company, which is a fast growing business, and which basically venture capitalists are more interested in a private.
Please move the slide.
Oh, sir, sorry. I think this is visible
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
So it is basically a private limited company which is very fast growing, and VCs are basically interested in this kind of a funding. And then you have a limited liability partnership where the VCs are partners in the company. And this is a relatively cheaper and a faster approach because it does not have higher regulatory compliances as of a private limited company. Then you have a journal partnership, which is a business structure where you have two or more individuals doing business according to the terms and conditions laid out in the partnership deal. But this structure has lost its relevance ever since in 2008 the limited liability partnership has moved in. And then you have the sole proprietorship in which the business is managed and owned by a single person. And you could end up this setting up this business in 10 days. And this is very popular in the unorganized sector, right? It is not popular in the organized sector. It is with the small traders and merchants. And then you have one person company. This is a very recent addition, and it is a strong, it is a rather an improvement over sole proprietorship. It gives the promoter full control of the company while limiting his or her contributions to the business, right? So that means he cannot contribute, and he is the only director and shareholder of the company. So he is responsible for everything, even for the losses. The one-person company is responsible. Whereas in limited liability partnership, none of the partner actually is liable for a loss. So that is what is in your personal belongings, your personal assets would not be taken up in a limited liability partnership. But yes, in a private limited company, yes, it will be taken up. And further, if you are into biotech research, the government of India has done some very good amendments in the laws. If you are doing if you are running a biotech company and you are having an LLP, till 40 lakhs, you do not have to audit your company's account, and till 1 crore, you are not supposed to pay a tax. And this tax holiday is there for 10 years, for which you have to apply to the Department of Industry, and they will provide you a certificate. And subsequent to that certificate, you will be eligible for filing a tax-free rebate for your company for next 10 years. So these are the some very brownie points which are important for the companies or for promoting startups in India. And when you talk about funding agencies, When you talk about funding agencies, well, there are different stages of funding. After you have a startup, there is an angel round. This angel round basically is a small round, which is company off the ground, where investors could be an angel investor or could include individual angel investors or an angel investor group, friends and families. Then there is a pre-seed round, which is a pre-institutional seed round, where there are it has no institutional investors, but has a very low amount, around $150,000. And then there is a seed round, which is the first round of funding the company receives after it has launched into the market. When there is a subsequent traction, that is what it is, traction, and the round sizes between $10,000 US dollars. And then there is a Series A round, which is approximately 2 million to 50 million. And there is a series funding of in 2020 it was an average of 15.6 million, and these companies are called as unicorns. And then you have Series B round, where an average estimated capital is raised to the tune of 33 million. And then you have a Series C round, where the uh, the funding basically is for acquisition of a smaller company, or for further development of the company, or for making more equity, more IPO, or releasing more shares in the equity shares into the market. That is the C round basically. And if you talk about now, I'll talk about my own company, which I started. My date of the company Axfarm Bioinnovations LLP was incorporated on 18 December after much groundwork of an year or so. We are registered at the Registrar of Companies at Chandigarh, and we have been recognized by the Department of Industry and Promotion, and our number is this under the Startup India scheme. We are also recognized by Agni, and we are incubating at the Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Park and Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, though the registered office is this. The core area of the company is post-harvest preservation, crop protection, and healthcare. And these are the social media where we are available. This is the website where you can visit us and have more details about us. So talking about my journey and traction of establishing this company, well, it began with exploratory research, which was under a DBT grant. I had a national biodiversity project with me in 2008 to 11. And at that time, we found certain organisms, because I basically work in plant microbe interaction. So I was working with plant microbes, and we were working on certain endophytic fungi. And we found that there are some very unique type of fungi which we evaluated for certain aspects. And we found that they possess a very potent antimicrobial activity. That too, very unique part being they were producing certain volatile compounds which were not allowing other fungi and bacteria to grow in their vicinity. And we then realized that this could have an impact on our the possible impact or societal impact of our research, that it should be taken into and converted into a socio-economic model. And having uh, uh, this kind of a thought, we tried to. I applied for a program which was called Challenge for Change program in with Government of Rajasthan, which was run by me because that was a proof of concept. And then we also went in for a program called IIGP, India Innovation Growth Program, which is sponsored by FICCI, DST, Lockheed Martin, USA. And we were among the 3,000. We were the selected eight. They selected 8 projects out of 3,000 entries from all across the India, and we were among the top 8 from under the University Challenge program. And on the basis of this, we thought that now we should think of establishing a company. So we moved to our university and asking for a permission and discussing the whole thing. It took something like 3 months doing all the legalities. And finally, we were given a green signal to establish. So we were the first faculty startup in the university. Now there are more than 6 in the university currently. And then we developed the prototype by the funds of CTDSC Lockheed Martin. They gave us 10 lakh rupees for developing the prototype of the product. And then again we tested it, and then but meanwhile we again applied for another program which is called Social Fights, organization of Tata Trust, and they had put up an Agri-Tech Innovations Challenge. So we again applied our innovation in that, and we won that challenge. It is jointly supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and IIT Kanpur. And in 2020, we again optimized our Bola Fresh 1 under the laboratory conditions. We were not very happy, so we further optimized, improved, improvised version of the prototype was created. And after that, we were satisfied enough. So we filed an Indian patent on it. And now this product is ready for pilot trials. Meanwhile, I had a chance to be a part of FLCTD accelerator. FLCTD refers to flow facility for low carbon technology development, and this is by a company called Sangam Ventures, and we went in for an investor pitch, and this program was supported by United Nations Development Organization UNIDO, and we in this there were many angel investors also. So Indian angel investors have invited us to put in the whole proposal, because we have a ask of around 75 lakhs for taking up the pilot trials, because we are already at technology related level 4, and after this, after the pilot trials, we'll have the product ready for the commercialization. And meanwhile, we have also been selected by the Food Systems Game Changers Lab, which is by a program by Rockefeller Foundation and EAT and Thought for Food. And this program basically is working with the United Nations for the UN Food Systems Conference, which is going to be held in September, October 2021. And there we will have again interaction with international global.
Dr. Sanjay, we are overshooting the time already.
Sir, 5 minutes more. So this is what we have done so far. These are the two events which we selected. Post we did this. Now the product which we have developed is basically on food security, because we are facing we have got very poor global hunger index and global food security index. And apart from it, there are infrastructure and financial challenges which the Indian farmer is facing. So we have developed a very unique product, which is just like a tea bag. As you dip the tea bag into the tea for preparation of the tea, we have developed this a product called Bola Fresh. You dip this into water for 15 to 45 seconds and activate for 35, and you can keep it in a fruit and vegetable box. It is decentralized, modular, and you can, as per Epido norms, it is only 2 packets of 50 grams, which can go for a 5 kg packing. And this concept to prototype development took 4 years for us for really coming up with a product. And if you talk about value propositions, which I have been referring to, it is causing a drastic reduction in wastage or loss by 30 to 40%. It is affordable, simple to use, available, and accessible. And the shelf life of vaccination is up to 3 weeks without cold refrigeration. And it limits the chemical contamination, recyclability, and enhancing food safety. And if you look at the market potential, we are addressing both B2B and B2C segments. And if you talk about the business model, well, we have a contract arrangement. We are working with a citrus supplier, and the market size of the citrus is around 65 crores. And the cost of the 30-gram packet is going to be around 30 rupees for a corporate setup like this. And if you talk about Bola Fresh impact, well, it has going to have a very sound impact on customers. It will increase something like 30% increase in the farmer's income, reduction in losses during transportation, overall revenue enhancement, drastic reduction in emission of greenhouse gases, and lower use of synthetic chemicals. Apart from this, it is going to make the nation food secure and hunger free, and it is going to impact. It is impacting the UN Sustainability Goal 1, 2, 12, and 13. And this is the team live, and our mission basically is enhancing food security and farmers' income. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Saxena. It was a very informative talk, and I congratulate you on blending so perfectly the biology with the business.
Thank you.
It's very nice of you. I open the lecture for discussion. If you can have some points over here, some queries. Can we have? Anybody? We have the second resource person also, Dr. Shirshendu from DBT. We have Professor Saxena. Unfortunately, Dr. Joanna is in meeting, so we don't have her. So I think we can have a brief session of discussion.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, regarding these fungal volatiles, do you have any publications which we can seek?
No, this is a patented work. So if I publish, I can't patent.
Yeah, but it is a very, very interesting work. Actually, we at IRI are also doing some sort of similar work. That is why I wanted to know. Okay, thank you. But it was a beautiful lecture and very, very enriching. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay Satsanga, for a very
Thank you, sir.
informative lecture indeed. Let me congratulate you on behalf of Society for Plant Research and Vegetors. As you know that out of the food crops which we are having, which the farmers are growing, a large number of crops go waste because of thunderstorms or hailing or because of so many other environmental factors. Do you find that these wasted food crops, they can be recycled and can be utilized for the benefit of society? Because during the inspection of National Accreditation and Assessment Committee, I observed that several institutes, they are doing wonderful job. They are utilizing these waste food crops for making different types of products which are quite useful and nutritious as well. Because if you visit some of the hill area in Himachal or Uttarakhand or even Garhwal Himalayas, you will find that a lot of food materials which are not being used by the public in general or which are of less use, they just fall down from the trees and they go waste. So some of the people who are just residing nearby, the poor people, they just take those fruits out and utilize them as they want. But can we think that if we can utilize these dropout food material and give a better example of food security, because a lot of food can be saved from wastage? Do you have any idea about it, Dr. Sanjay?
Sir, exactly. There is a huge requirement of reduction in wastage, and we have been trying for doing that. We are also developing valorization of products. We can convert them into ethanol. One of the best technologies is to convert them into biofuel. If you can convert them into bioethanol, then it can solve the problems of energy. And this is being done very commonly in Punjab. A lot of grain is getting wasted every year because of rains, and then it is infected by aspergillus and penicillin. So they process it and put it into the distillery for ethanol production. So that can be one fate.
Yeah, can we have some more questions here? Yeah.
Because in Mumbai, I observed that several types of leaves which we had been using as green vegetable, they just convert them into chips-like structures.
Yeah.
Like potato chips we make, then they make some chips from different types of green vegetable, and they just vacuum pack them and they are supplied in the market. Likewise, the dropout fruits, they are being converted into some sort of alcoholic beverages.
Yeah.
Not exactly the wine or whiskey or something like that, but they are converting them into some soft drink. And these soft drinks, since they are not containing any component of alcohol, they are being supplied outside. And the small marginal farmers, they are getting income out of that.
Yes, sir. So my intervention basically is addressing the small and small holders and the marginal farmers, because they can't afford cold storage and they don't have other interventions to use to protect their food. So this is just going to be a frugal innovation which will help the farmers to store their food up to the 3 weeks till they get the fair price of their produce, and they don't go to fast selling of their produce.
Right.
Dr. Raghavan, do you have some query here? Can you unmute yourself? We are not listening you. You are not audible. Sorry. In the meantime, can we have some more questions over here? Anybody else? Dr. Raghavan, not audible still. Sorry, not audible. I think you can put your question on chat, so he will be able to answer. Professor Bhatnagar, can we have Dr. D.K. Srivastava here?
Yeah, Professor D.K. Srivastava is already here.
Yeah.
Professor D.K. Srivastava, can you extend vote of thanks now?
Thank you, Sanjay,
Thank you.
for sparing your valuable time and efforts.
Sir, always available for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Thank you very much for very informative talk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You are not audible, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Dr. Srivastava, please unmute here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ahead.
Is it audible?
Yeah. You are audible now. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I think all of you will agree with us that we have a wonderful session today. First of all, I would like to thank all the three speakers who has given a wonderful talk. The first speaker, that Dr. Joanna, ADG ICRISAT. The second one, Dr. S. Mukherjee from Mission Director, Government of India. Dr. Sanjay Satsanga from Thapar Institute, Patiala. They have given a very wonderful talk on the topic that what was assigned to them. And the title which was framed for the webinar was very nice. As all of you know that about the private equity for biological research. I would like to thank Professor R.R. Hanchinal, President SPR, Founder and Secretary General Professor S.K. Bhatnagar, Professor Pradeep Singhal, who is today's webinar's moderator and who has introduced all the speakers to us, and Dr. Tabassum, who is rapporteur. I would like to thank all the speakers and all the organizers of this webinar. And I thank you all for being a part of this wonderful session. I am sure everyone must have been enlightened by the presentation and discussion on the private equity for biological research, and certainly have got one or the other point as takeaway from these amazing sessions. Be safe and take care. Goodbye till we meet again. Thank you.
Our special thanks to Dr. MP Yadav Sahab, our senior patron, for encouraging us this whole program and all the programs.
Thanks a lot, Professor Yadav.
As a moderator,
we had always been blessed by Professor Yadav in all activities we organize.
And Professor Hanchinal for encouraging us. And Professor Subodh Bhatnagar for being a very good felicitator over here. So I hope each of us move in the right direction, just from government to private. Thank you very much for your wonderful cooperation. Professor Bhatnagar, to you, I think we can conclude now.
Yes, I once again extend my heartiest thanks to Professor Yadav, Professor Hanchinal, all my colleagues from Society for Plant Research, Professor Chapurak, who had always been a very inspiring force of the society, Professor Srivastava, and all executive members, editorial board members, and other attendees. I thank you all very much for a very fruitful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.